All right, guys. Again, back on here, trying to get in the habit of having more streams just to be able to create more content, ultimately have more things to post, and try to maintain some type of relevancy, um, along with all the crazy world issues that are going on. One of the things, though, I mean, with the past two, what is it, 2, 3 days now that we've had all this craziness going on in the world. We've had uh, the U.S. attacking Iran, Iran striking back out of retaliation, which is, I mean, they said anyone fucks with them, they're going to be striking back. So, um, to the point, I mean, they kind of really were like, hey, fuck around, find out. It's not what you want to see, but you keep poking a caged dog. At some point, the dog might just get out of the cage and try to bite you. Seems that they don't forget. So, why? I think that looking at everything, though, there's some points that I want to talk about with everything going on. It's seemingly month after month, there's been something new going on, right? There's been Maduro and Maduro's regime getting toppled. We kidnapped a sitting president of a foreign country. Not gonna lie, it's pretty badass that we can go sneak in there and steal a president, knowing that the military has that capability. It is kind of badass, and I'm not gonna say it's not because it's pretty sweet. Now, do I agree with that? Not necessarily, because if you look at history, and I'm going to talk about this a few different times too, but if you look at history and the playbook that we've utilized in the past, it's usually that there's something, some bigger picture, right? There's a playbook that we continue to use. It's the same thing that we do over and over again, in one way, shape, or another. So, I don't necessarily agree with kidnapping foreign presidents. Um, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And then after that, the next month we have El Mencho getting killed. And El Mencho, I'm still trying to figure out a little bit more on. I think I've been diving into him a bit, but the research has been few and far between. There's just a lot of, I guess, different conspiracy and rabbit holes that I'm trying to actually go through and validate, to see if there's any truth to some of the things. Um, but to the point, I think that the U.S. really has this playbook, right? We have this freedom playbook that we use time and time again. And usually, if the U.S. is trying to sit there and be diplomatic and play Big Brother and world police, there's some type of outcome. And I'm really trying to piece it all together right now. It's kind of like this pattern recognition, can't even talk, recognition thing. Um, but there's some things that really started to click lately. And it's that war has been the motive the entire time. And we already knew that, didn't we? I mean, if you look at it, they said, let's take out Maduro. He's a bad man. He's killing so many Americans with the drugs he traffics into America. It's Venezuela, it's their fentanyl. But Venezuela wouldn't even rank in the top 10 countries that impact us the most by legal drug trafficking, do they? Rather, I mean, you have countries like Mexico, China, Colombia, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Peru, Bolivia, India, Canada, that were deemed much bigger threats to American citizens by and large. After all, I mean, the DEA and the Presidential Determination on Major Drug Transit have both stated this. So it seems odd that we escalated in the matter we did, especially after having exemplified such restraint and patience for other countries that have had a much higher impact on American citizens. But I want to ask you this. I mean, did you happen to know what Venezuela's largest industry is? It's not drugs, it's oil. Oil is the largest industry in Venezuela. But I'm guessing it would be total conjecture to say that by toppling Maduro's regime, the only two countries that would have benefited heavily from that regime change in Venezuela would have been the US and Israel. Oddly coincidental. And the coincidence to me, it's crazy that Maduro's regime being toppled happened to be around a similar timeline, the same timeline that resurfaced the topic of Iran's weapons of mass destructions. The ones that we had allegedly destroyed a year prior in Operation Midnight Hammer in June of 2025. But again, the WMD that took them 30 years to create was recreated in less than a year. And that's amidst all of the chaos and ruin since we destroyed their nuclear plants and destroyed their WMDs. And then after that, on the timeline, for following this timeline, you've got to cue the protests where the people, right on time, all start come out to protest the government. And they all start talking about how much they hate their supreme leader and how they want him out and that they're so oppressed. And the women can't show their ankles and yada yada, right? It's a terrible country to live in. But did we never see this in 1953? So there's the issue. We forget history, and history, it has a way of repeating itself in some way, shape, or form. And if you're still wondering what I'm talking about, that well, there was a coup in 1953 in which the CIA and MI6, along with some of the questionable folks with Zionist beliefs, overthrew Iran's government. And I'm going to digress with that. Don't let me get distracted because I tend to do that quite a bit. But would it be outlandish to question if those recent reports of Israeli and American weapons actually were found at the latest round of protests, the protests that just happened this year? And would it be downright preposterous to ask if those weapons were the same ones that caused the deaths of how many Iranians was it? Was it 7,000? Was it 20,000? Was it 35,000? But it was at the hands of this demonic regime that everybody hates, right? Because they're protesting how much they hated, how much they absolutely just hated their supreme leader. And I guess things I want to know was, were those weapons actually there? Could they have been complicit in stirring up another protest and then causing the violence? Because it wouldn't be our first time. No, it wouldn't. But hey, we are the global police. But back to it, there were weapons of mass destruction aimed at each and every one of you in America. And now that we have the backstory for that, next up on the timeline, what's up? The negotiations, right? Because they have weapons of mass destruction and intercontinental ballistic missiles that they have aimed at every single one of us citizens. They're trying to kill us and they're chanting death to America. So naturally, we send in America's finest nuclear negotiators, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, to do America's bidding, because Steve Witkoff, a real estate developer who just so happens to be Trump's favorite golf partner of like 40 years or whatever, and Jared Kushner, businessman and investor, the same Jared Kushner who let Bibi Netanyahu sleep in his bed as a kid, whose dad, Charles Kushner, that is also somehow the U.S. ambassador to France. I say somehow because his dad is a criminal, but became U.S. ambassador to France despite his criminal record. And probably not because of his connections, I'm sure, but he's got some pretty good connections. But anyway, Jared Kushner is also Trump's son in law. No connection there, right? And I'm sorry, I'm going to slow it down a bit because that was a lot to take in. But these guys are severely underqualified to be diplomatic negotiators. And I'm sure it's not the fact that their backgrounds are in real estate or that there might be some conflicts of interest. I mean, they're both Jewish, for starters. And relax, I'm not saying that their Zionism, I mean, Judaism, is a conflict of interest because everyone should have a right to religion. But maybe Bibi Netanyahu sleeping in your bed as a child would show a level of commitment to do what's best for foreign countries. And guys, it's not like that would ever happen in the USA. I mean, our politicians literally don't take any money from foreign entities, right? None of our politicians would ever do that. But back to it, it seems like we had negotiations that didn't go anywhere. Because strong arming and forcing a regime change that didn't affect us as much as it affected our allies was reasonable, right? Anyway, no new wars. Didn't really age well. No new wars. But if we can't negotiate and we can't come to diplomatic terms, we might just have to start one. And if we start that war, we're going to force a regime change. They don't even hide it anymore. I mean, they were openly talking about how they wanted to topple the regime in Iran. And it's not crazy because they're literally saying it now. And when we do that regime change in Iran, we'll definitely have to usher somebody in that has kissed the wall because that aligns with our values as American citizens. That's reasonable. So if we're going to start a regional conflict, though, we would need to make sure that we can rapidly destabilize that said region. And to do that, we would also need to ensure that we have oil for the US, us, and our allies, right? All one of them, Israel, America's greatest ally. Because fighting wars would not be so easy without oil to keep us in the fight. It also wouldn't be easy to start a war or conflict against the same country that can easily shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And for a geography lesson, the Strait of Hormuz is that small area of water between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, and that's where about 25% of the global oil comes from. You also have Apple Maps, so you could just look that up. It's really not that difficult. And in any conflict, you need oil to fight. And it wouldn't be easy to fight a war because who else would we get oil from? Surely our allies like Russia or China, because those are the next top two producers of oil in the world. Again, I'm sure that this is all conjecture, not pattern recognition. But could it be any more obvious? We took down Maduro and inherited Venezuela's oil to fuel this war. And Venezuela did, in fact, have the largest oil reserve in the world. But what I want to know, and I mean, I'm truly on the edge of my seat for this one. What I want to know is, what is the end goal here? Is it a world war? Because it's looking that way. And we're just edging the thought of a global conflict. I mean, do you think Russia or China or North Korea are on our side? Has anyone been looking at the news? I know we don't really follow CNN or Fox anymore, but do you guys see the things that are being said on all sides at this point? And do you think that in 2026, American citizens cannot be harmed? Or are our politicians' pockets so fat and their egos so big that they can't see how terribly this all could go? This isn't the 1940s anymore. Weapons have advanced drastically since then. But anyway, we attacked Iran and killed Khamenei. Congrats. But the Iranians also have layers to their regime and the power changes that happen. And if you don't think they were already thinking about that next leader, because Khamenei was 87 years old, or that they had mapped out multiple successions and layered that regime, you might be a little bit stupid, because I'm sure that's something that was talked about. And that's why we've seen one power change to the next so far. And the US bombed them. And what are we seeing? Other than the failure to take out this huge American threat. I mean, we bombed them because Israel did. Israel was going to attack them either way, putting the overabundance of our military assets in the Middle East in danger. Israel would have attacked them, regardless of whether we want to or not. So we had to just run in after them, right? We also had to go alongside and attack Iran too. And you open the door for Israel to break more international laws. We saw a school where they slaughtered 100 little girls. So now we're complicit in their war crimes. Pretty sure that's a violation of Article 52 in the Geneva Conventions, but what do I know? And I'm sure that Hamas or Hezbollah was probably in that school with those 100 little girls. Actually, there was a nuclear reactor under the school that we were taking out. Same Israel, same playbook. Kill anyone and everyone. People are too afraid to say that. It's not anti-Semitic to call it what it is. And I mean, we've been idly watching the genocide that they've been committing in Palestine. It has been a genocide. And if you can't look at the pictures and the videos of what has happened in Gaza and Palestine and call it what it is, you are part of the issue. To the people over there that think that Hamas was hiding in every single one of those buildings, I would implore you to start looking into the history of that region. I would implore you to look at the fact that Bibi Netanyahu was propping up Hamas. Bibi Netanyahu was, in fact, sending money through Qatar to Hamas. Is that controlled opposition? Or did they create something that they couldn't handle anymore? I don't know. I wasn't there. But we see the evidence of this. And this was something that came out. I believe that the Jerusalem Post or Times Israel, whatever the hell one of those reporters are, they still have the documents of those up. So it's something that we can see. I mean, absolutely crazy times we live in. But now we're complicit in their war crimes, right? And now what, Mr. President? A lot of reports that our munitions are low. And we've seen that, and we've seen that put out there by our politicians and our generals. And what's the reason for that? Because we've been sending so much support to Ukraine and to Israel. And if we get attacked because of our sheer failure to diplomacy, how will the taxpayer protect the homeland? Rocks? Because right now we're running through a lot of rockets, missiles, bombs, protecting Israel and Ukraine. And I think everyone's kind of sick of it. And now the retaliations have claimed American lives. Mr. President, you said 3, and we know that's not true. So how many more American lives have been lost thus far? And how many more have to die for foreign countries before Americans are sick of it? How many more US dollars will be sent out to support foreign governments, all to go full circle and line every one of the pockets in DC? It's not your children on the front lines. Son Baron. I mean, American youth, they're expendable, right? No new wars. Board of peace. Board of peace. More like you were all just bored of peace. So here we are. It's your move again. We already knew you guys wanted this. The timeline shows it. You can't tell me otherwise. So what next? Where is the Americans' gain? Because the Americans are not doing okay. Did you know DHS still isn't currently funded? And that's the Department of Homeland Security. Those are the ones that would be protecting the homeland in case one of these sleeper cells that they've been telling us about decides to wake up and attack American citizens on U.S. soil. Was that all part of the bigger picture? What's next to fuel the war? An attack on American soil? Is that how you rally American people, by killing its citizens? I mean, it's worked before. If you remember, last time our citizens were attacked, not too long ago. And that one that really rallied everyone together. And it's probably something we will never forget. But I digress. And that's a huge allegation. It's all hearsay. So, but at least the Dow Jones is up, right? The Dow Jones is up. We didn't build that wall. We haven't deported a fraction of the legal migrants that made their way into our country illegally from the Biden administration. Instead, American citizens have been burning down, or American cities have been burning down, rather. Americans are more divided. The cost of living is up. The younger generations cannot afford to live. They aren't getting married and they aren't having kids. And we want an America that we love, a place where we can succeed, start a family and afford a life to live. We want to live the American dream, the one we only hear about these days. But you politicians, you boomers, you neocons, and warmongering pedophiles are doing everything in your power to divide this country and burn that dream. And I know I'm not crazy, because I think it's entirely fair to ask for us to start dealing with the national debt, to start dealing with the lives of our own citizens. It seems fair. A lot of people I know aren't benefiting from the wars. Would have thought. Definitely not from the billions sent to war-torn countries that give us nothing in return. And I want to state this because I don't want to deal with some of you sensitive Sallys, and I don't agree with the Iranian government. And if they ever wanted to become an active threat of ours, I would have loved for them to face the full response of the U.S. military raining hell down on them. But what I am against is the same old playbook. That playbook. We wanted war. We pushed war. And now our U.S. service members are paying the ultimate price for this. And that's what I stand against. I stand against us fighting wars for countries whose values don't align with ours. Because Israel's values are not American values. And Ukraine's values are not American values. We need to make changes. American sons and daughters really should not die on foreign soil. We shouldn't be there. And I'm sure, again, our reason for attacking Iran has had nothing to do with Bibi Netanyahu telling us that they have been on the brink of creating weapons of mass destruction for the last 30 years. Because he was right about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And how long did that take us to find out there was actually never any WMDs in Iraq? 20 years in the Middle East, another forever war? Seems reasonable. And how this time, I'm sure they're there. And they're going to kill Americans. They want you dead. They want to chant death to America and Allahu Akbar. And we should hate all the Muslims because they're your enemy, and they always have been. I mean, it was the Muslims that did 9/11, allegedly. But that's another conversation for another day. But what I'm really sick and tired of is people forgetting history. Because again, it really does have a funny way of repeating itself. And if you guys start to just really take the time to dissect the things that are going on in the world, you might just see that there's something called pattern recognition or that there's a playbook. But Maduro, in my opinion, wasn't an issue to America. Again, they weren't even one of the biggest threats for drug trafficking into the US. But what they did have was the largest oil reserve in the world. I believe it was 5 times larger than the US's oil reserves. And again, it's conjecture, but we benefited from that, right? Right before, somehow, out of the blue, the US decides to play global police because Iran was a threat to American citizens. Personally, I don't think they were. I don't think that Iran was a threat to American citizens, but now we have made them a threat. Now we did. And we wouldn't have needed that oil unless we planned on going to the Middle East. Because look at what happened after Iran was attacked. Was it the Houthis? Hezbollah? Who was it? Somebody shut down the Strait of Hormuz, though. Like clockwork. So that would have affected us drastically. But at least we have all that new oil. And it's also really strange to go back to Venezuela. It's also really strange. Did you know that in mid-2020, I believe it was, that Maduro stopped exporting oil to Israel? And only now, as of recently, after we had toppled that regime and put a new power in place, did Israel start receiving barrels of oil once again from Venezuela. So the US and Israel seemingly had everything to gain from going into Venezuela. And the story that you were fed is that Venezuela was killing Americans with drugs. And what's not to say that there are drugs that come out of there, but they were never listed as our biggest problem by the DEA or the president. So I find that oddly funny. And it seems that every single month there's something new that comes up. So just take the time to really start dissecting things and understand that their history does repeat itself and there is a playbook. But I'm not liking what I'm seeing right now. And I don't know what we have to gain by toppling another regime. Because personally, I don't think that Americans should have been there. I don't think that we should be at the beckoning call of Israel to go and fight their battles for them. Because you're being lied to. There's more than 3 deaths. If you look at everything that's going on, the American bases that have been bombed, that everything that's going on in the Middle East right now, it points to more Americans that are dead. And I'm sure that will come out in the weeks to come. But what's happening right now is that we don't have that many munitions. We don't have enough time right now to wage a war. So are we going to dial up and start sending more troops in there with more munitions to keep our troops that we actively have in there safe because we have over half of our Navy in the Middle East? Or are we going to come to terms in the next few days? But at this rate, I really think that the world's going to start just really shaking up. And it's not a fun time for that because in 1940s, you know, the threats they didn't have at that time was nuclear capabilities like all these countries have now. All these countries have nuclear capabilities. So what's war in 2026 going to look like? Because to me right now, the world is at war. We just haven't labeled it that. Is China going to invade Taiwan finally? Is North Korea, who's been sitting on the side of the playground, actually going to hop out there into the playground? We don't know. But I'm sure we're going to find out relatively soon at this rate because Operation Epstein Fury, I mean, Epic Fury, is pretty epic so far. And I'm sure that Americans are going to be safe and nothing worse is going to happen. But we're shaking up the hornet's nest right now. So I'm going to end it right there for the night, and might do a couple different videos later. But that was one of the things that I really wanted to talk about, because I really do think that we were motivated to get into a war. What the bigger picture is right now, that's what I'm trying to find out. But I like to definitely see what everyone else is thinking. So good night, everyone. God bless. Stay safe. Stay vigilant. And I will see you next time.